This video should help you see when there's a problem with participial phrases that are standing outside your main clause, separated by a comma, that is a problem with what they modify. Participial phrases, when they are set off by commas from the main clause, always modify the subject of the main clause, whether you want them to or not. That's what they do. And here we'll look at some sentences where that causes some problems. Now these sentences all have participial phrases that are built around present participles. I have another video dealing with participial phrases that are built around past participles. This one will deal with present participles. So I've got two examples of good participial phrases and good sentences up at the top here. Having won, Gabor will depart. Okay, now Gabor is the subject, and having won is a participial phrase beginning with a present participle, even though it's then followed by a past participle, but this is our primary participle here, and it is correctly modifying Gabor. Well, how do I know it's correctly modifying Gabor? Well, a test you can do, you can take the subject. This is a test specifically for seeing whether participial phrases that are separated by a comma from the main clause are working properly. And present participle, phrases built around present participle. So the subject is Gabor, and if we follow that with the participle turned into a verb, well, then we would get Gabor has won. So the having, our present participle, we just turn it into the verb, and having won, the participial phrase, becomes this verb phrase, has won. So Gabor has won. And you ask yourself, well, does that correctly express what the author or what I am trying to say? Is that part of what I'm saying, that Gabor has won? Well, right. That is what this speaker is trying to say. Gabor has won, and having won, he will depart. Okay, so here's another one. Breathing deeply, Teka relaxed. So the subject is Teka, and breathing deeply, so there's our present participle. We turn that into a verb, and we get breathes deeply. So we get Teka breathes deeply. And is that part of what we're trying to say in this sentence? And indeed it is. So these sentences work fine. So now let's look at this sentence. Having worked all night, seeing the dawn was a relief. Well, having worked all night, that is a participial phrase, and indeed it is separated by a comma from the main clause. The main clause is seeing the dawn was a relief. Now, taken by themselves, there's nothing wrong with that participial phrase in itself, having worked all night, and there's nothing wrong with that main clause in itself, seeing the dawn was a relief. Those are both fine. The problem comes in when we try to join them together in the way that they are joined together. So our test here would be what? What is the subject of this main clause? Seeing the dawn was a relief. Well, the subject is seeing the dawn. Seeing there is the simple subject. I mean, that's really that is a gerund, obviously, not a participle. It's functioning as a noun. It's neither a participle nor a verb. So seeing the dawn is the subject. And what happens if we turn the participle, the present participle, into a verb? Seeing the dawn, well, now having worked all night becomes has worked. Now I'm not going to bother writing all night, though I would probably say that to myself if I were testing this. So what we get here is seeing the dawn has worked all night. Well, something has worked all night, but it certainly isn't seeing the dawn. It's some person, and whoever it is who has worked all night isn't even mentioned in this sentence. So this sentence does not work work because there's nothing, I mean, well, there is something for this to modify, namely seeing the dawn, but that doesn't make any sense. Seeing the dawn hasn't worked all night. So if you were to correct this sentence, and if you were to sort of be committed to beginning this way, having worked all night, what you'd want then is the entity, the person, who has worked all night. So having worked all night, I saw the dawn with relief. That would be a perfectly correct version of the sentence, because then the test would be, I have worked all night, which is what would be meant. But here, this participial phrase does not modify the sentence correctly. Now, this one, sleeping through his alarm, Bella arrived hours late. Now, this actually, in a way, is a little bit of a, well, I don't intend it as a trick, but this is actually another kind of problem, because our test would be, the subject would be Bela, and if we turn sleeping through his alarm to sleeps, make it a verb, sleeps through his alarm, etc., etc., Bela sleeps through his alarm, well, that works fine. So that's not the problem. But there is a problem here. And the problem has to do with time. Because here we clearly have two things that are happening in a sequence. They're not happening simultaneously. So in breathing deeply, Tekka relaxed. While she's relaxing, she is breathing deeply. I mean, these things are happening at the same time. Similar, well, no, not by contrast. Gabor is first going to win, and then he's going to depart. And that shows, and similarly here, first there's going to be working all night, and then not seeing the dawn, but then I will experience relief, or something like that. So first is the winning, and then is the departing. So the lesson here is, you will have guessed, is that when the action named by the participial phrase happens, or happened, or will happen before the action named by the main verb, in this case arrived, what you have to do is that you cannot have just a present participle like sleeping. You have to have having plus the past participle. So in this case, slept. It has to be having slept through his alarm. Bela arrived hours late. So here, the problem was not caused by sleeping through his alarm, the participial phrase modifying the wrong thing, because indeed Bela sleeps through his alarm. I mean, that is correct. The problem is that if the action named by the participial phrase is prior to the action named by the main verb, you have to have having plus past participle. You can't simply have a present participle like sleeping in this case. So that shows you two different kinds of problems that you can have when the participial phrase is standing outside the main clause. One is, and it's probably the more common one, you're just not modifying the right thing, and that's what this sentence is about. And the other is this temporal problem when the actions aren't lined up correctly temporally, because you can't be sleeping through your alarm and arriving hours late at the same time. You have to say, having slept through his alarm, Bela arrived hours late.